I want the team to dare. No one should be afraid to take some risks. Ferrari team principal Frederic Vasseur has made this vision one of the guidelines of his management. And today, in the qualifying session for the Belgian Grand Prix, it was the approach that made the difference. The weather forecasts before the qualifying were quite clear. It would be a session for the Pirelli intermediate tires, but with a question mark regarding the intensity of the rain throughout the day. In the first stage of the qualifying session, the two Ferrari drivers Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc finished in 5th and 6th positions respectively. The session was more complicated than expected, with 19 drivers. The exception is easy to identify, having to use 2 sets out of the 4 available of intermediate tires. With the 2 remaining Pirelli sets, it became crucial to pass the second part of qualifying with just 1 set, a mission accomplished by the Ferrari drivers as well as by the McLaren and Mercedes tandems. In Q3, with only 12 minutes available, both McLaren and Mercedes chose to immediately hit the track with their last new set of intermediates, but Ferrari opted for a first run with a used set, a risk because if the rain had increased or if there had been a yellow flag in the final minutes, the price paid would have been the 4th row on the starting grid. Conversely, and this is what happened, Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz had the opportunity to be the last to hit the track with a new set of tires, which offered a bit more grip on the racing line. Of course, it also required the ability to perform at the crucial moment, all in one lap. Charles Leclerc stepped up. He improved by 0.2 in the first sector compared to Q2, a 1/10.5 in the third. But above all, the Monegasque driver put together all his best partials, achieving a result that very few, or perhaps it would be better to say no one, would have bet on the day before. In the 11 thousandths that allowed Charles Leclerc to surpass Sergio Perez and secure pole position, there is a team performance. Everything in the Scuderia's box today was done in the best possible way. Only Carlos Sainz's performance was missing, as he will start from 7th position tomorrow. The Spaniard finished both Q1 and Q2 ahead of his Maranello teammate, but at the crucial moment, something didn't work. Right out of the section before La Source, Carlos Sainz's SF24 car struggled a lot with traction. The Ferrari driver mentioned that he had just one difficult run in Q3, which unfortunately was the final one that counted. The Spaniard performed well in the rest of the session, felt comfortable with the car, and felt very confident, believing he did some really good laps. However, with the last set of intermediate tires, he had a lot of trouble getting them up to temperature and planned to talk to his Ferrari engineers in order to better understand what happened. Tomorrow will be another story, but it's not certain that the 44 laps of the race will necessarily bring less good news for Ferrari. Charles Leclerc emphasized that they don't have a magic wand, and that the feedback from the race simulations seen the previous day remains the same even after the good qualifying performance. However, the situation is very unpredictable, and starting from pole position provides a small insurance for the initial stages of the Belgian Grand Prix. Much will depend on the track conditions, the ambient temperatures, and how the standings take shape after the first few laps. After the qualifying session, predicting a Ferrari podium seems a much less risky bet than it was before the Belgian weekend. A positive Saturday, therefore, for the Maranello team, who secures pole position in Belgium thanks to Charles Leclerc. The Monegasque driver actually qualified in 2nd place behind Max Verstappen, who is worth pointing out that was fastest today by 0.6, but due to the Dutchman's grid penalty, as he fitted a new internal combustion engine and thus dropped 10 positions on tomorrow's grid, the Monaco Grand Prix winner will start at the front on Sunday. A stellar performance for number 16, stemming from a phenomenal second sector, which had been the main weakness of the SF24 single-seater at the 7.004-kilometer circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, but the rain probably mitigated the car's problems. Also contributing was the new tire available for the final minutes, something the McLaren and Mercedes cars did not have, as previously explained. A significant advantage for Charles Leclerc, who made the most of his immense talent in the single lap, something he has either regained or, rather, never lost, as he himself stated in post-qualifying interviews. Carlos Sainz was in the exact same conditions as his Maranello teammate, and after an otherwise very positive session where he always had the right feeling with his red car, he failed at the most crucial moment. This means that climbing back from the 4th row tomorrow will be anything but simple, a real shame, especially considering the good race pace shown during the first 2 free practice sessions. Ferrari celebrates the 25th pole position of Charles Leclerc's career. Yes, because for mere statistics, the Monegasque was the fastest today due to Max Verstappen's penalty. The SF24 performs quite well on the straight, while it inevitably struggles in the central sector on a track where finding the right aerodynamic compromise is incredibly difficult. Charles Leclerc will now have to keep Sergio Perez, Lewis Hamilton, and Lando Norris behind him at the start of the Belgian Grand Prix, which is clearly not an easy task, especially considering the two Mercedes-powered cars, which are seen as the most dangerous since the Mexican's Red Bull RB20 is very loaded and will somewhat struggle with top speed. On a track like Spa-Francorchamps, where there are about 28 seconds of straight from the start to the Les Combes corner in dry conditions, it will be a very tough situation for Charles Leclerc in the first lap of Sunday's race. Still, Scuderia Ferrari is ready to be on the attack in Belgium, competing with Mercedes in terms of race pace. But certainly, Charles Leclerc's completely unexpected pole position likely raises the bar to a higher level. McLaren and Red Bull are also in close contention, and holding the first position will be far from simple for the Monegasque, but being able to compete at the front, even for a podium in this moment of technical difficulty for the Maranello team, is already a significant achievement. Additionally, Charles Leclerc has once again demonstrated that he is a great driver, much to the satisfaction of those who had doubts in recent weeks. With a Ferrari that clearly could not have aimed for the front row in dry conditions at Spa-Francorchamps, the Monegasque driver crafted one of his perfect laps, leaving even the Scuderia staff astonished. Charles Leclerc rediscovered the motivation that seemed to have faded along with the SF24 single-seater after his victory on the streets of Monte Carlo in front of his home fans. The evolved configuration of the car did not suffer that much from the dreaded bouncing problems, and Charles Leclerc performed a miracle by using the new set of intermediate tires that the Maranello team had saved for him in the final run. The Italian side unexpectedly found a strong performance, revitalizing the SF24 after several difficult races. Ferrari therefore secured their 251st pole position, giving a new direction to a 2024 Formula One championship filled with too many ups and downs in this first half of the season. The big disappointment of the qualifying session for the Belgian Grand Prix was McLaren, with Lando Norris only in 5th position and his teammate Oscar Piastri in 6th place. The two papaya-colored cars were expected to be on the front row, but in the wet, they didn't impress the full potential of the car. However, it is fair to say that the two MCL38 single-seaters are probably the least aerodynamically loaded. So tomorrow, when dry conditions are expected, they could become the big favorites for the race victory. The fact that the two McLaren drivers are separated by only 46 thousandths indicates that they reached the car's limit, at least in the wet conditions encountered on Saturday afternoon in Belgium.